So I just got done with High Five, which on the YouTube playlist of Power Ranger episodes is episode two, which I think is a very appropriate place for it for a few reasons. But um, on the Power Ranger episode list on Google, it is episode uh, three, and I think it's even ranked lower on the Netflix episode list. Um, but I really kind of think you have to have it as the second episode, not only mechanically for the show to make sense, but because the phrase Power Rangers is actually technically introduced here, along with Billy already beginning to showcase his absolute brilliance in the series. Trini gets a really cool spotlight in this episode. Jason gets a really cool spotlight in this episode. They do this really cool maneuver that we never see from them again, I don't think, called the human chain, where it's like a spinning thing. That is in this episode. This is a really interesting episode in the way where the pacing of Food Fight was really, really off. This is almost paced too much. If you've ever watched the Sentai, High Five has like three different Sentai episodes, all kind of slams into one, and you can actually kind of tell. I'm not even sure this is with age. I kind of think that even back in the day, people that watched this could probably tell this came from some other source material. This is the first time we see the monorail system, by the way, in Angel Grove. We don't see it much in the show, but it's kind of in the background here, especially. You also get the real sense of this as a show using other material because they don't automatically morph and they make it seem like something that Zordon has requested of them, at least Jason does. But it also has to do, I think, a bit with the with shooting on location and things like that. I love I don't know where exactly this episode was shot, but I love that this has like there's a section of the episode in like this cactus garden area. So I have to imagine it's maybe somewhere outside Balboa Park or something. I don't know. But it's a really cool kind of effect where I'm so used to seeing the Rangers either on a beach or in some kind of like cliffside, which we have a bit here. But here there's like a cactus garden theme to it, which is really cool. I, these episodes are interesting because they remind me that the like uncanny creepiness of the putties was much more visceral in these early episodes. These putties, for some reason, this version of them, even though you can kind of tell it's a suit, their face sculpt police is much creepier. Um, the idea that Rita thinks of the upcoming bad guys as her babies is kind of introduced here, which is interesting. Like all of the little clay sculptures that they sent through the monster-o-matic are here. Uh, I can't get over either the Hess truck space shuttle craft thing, which is um in the Sentai, essentially episode one, episode two of the Sentai is this shuttlecraft coming in, and that is all being used here. Like you can tell where exactly the line is between Power Rangers and Sentai footage in a lot of ways. Um, yeah, it's not cool. It's also it could have been a much longer. Bones is a much more compelling villain and a much more like presently maniacal villain. He's easier to beat than Pudgy Pig, but he's actually a little more frightening, a little more capable. Now, I'm intrigued, and I've used this a bit in my work in the tabletop game version of this, with this idea that there are just some of these bad guys that have these little pocket dimensions that exist. And Bones is one of them. Pudgy Pig kind of has it because there's sort of a displacement thing they do. But Bones specifically is one of the ones where like they have to kind of crack open the earth to get rid of his head. There's a multi-step plan that has to happen. Um, as much as I think of this as a Trini episode, because the first third to half of it is about her getting over her fear of heights to save Billy, there's something here too where it's also really a Billy themed episode because he kind of comes into the scene talking in jargon about the wrist communicators, which, by the way, canonically he built. I like to remind people of that because people think that's something that the Rangers come with automatically. They don't. Billy actually built those, and Zordon was not surprised. This is sort of that same mechanic of the show where like things happen that people should react to and they don't because they're like, well, of course, I know how to pilot this giant mechanized dinosaur. It feels like second nature. Ah, Billy created these wrist communicators that also help us teleport. Um, and they try to make Billy really kind of human by making him like really nervous around putties and not very good. Like they really solidify him here, especially in this early episode as sort of the brain of the group. But it's not insulting, which is nice because in the 90s, brain characters often kind of got what I think of as the Minkus treatment, where they're kind of othered even further from the group, like Minkus from Boy Meets World. We don't have that happen with Billy. And I get the sense that even if he weren't chosen as a Power Ranger, that the group wouldn't other him. Um, Also, this is really weird too. Like there's interesting thing where they're kind of sexualizing Jason too. Like we get the shot of Jason's like thighs in his short shorts as he's kind of descending down the rope because the opening of the episode he's going up, he's doing a rope climb, which is where we're introduced into Trini's fear of heights. There's just interesting. I'm seeing it even now in these opening episodes. There's this shift where he's just not a leader, but there's kind of a sexualizing object about Jason, which is kind of interesting because he's where you would think it would be Kimberly or Trini, where they would show more skin because it's early 90s. And all of the Californian babes were like in bikinis at all times. That was how TV kind of showcased them. Jason really is more of the sexual object here in the beginning of the show, and it'll be that way for quite a while, I think. But specifically in this episode, there is a shot of him like descending on the rope, and he's going to like sit on top of Billy's shoulders in sort of a comedic fashion, because Billy wasn't paying attention. But like the way that they focused the shot on him sitting, it really seems to like glorify Jason's body a lot more. So I'm interested to see like if that's something that continues. One thing else I noticed in the episode for kind of the opener is a Bulk and Scholar in this episode very briefly, and Bulk is really strong. He pulls down like the climbing rope and also part of the ceiling. And no one kind of mentions that that's a lot of strength for one person to have. That's kind of like, for me, a, a sign that he could have been a Power Ranger. Like if you were going to do signs of someone that could have been a Power Ranger, having this kind of upper body strength is would be really useful. I will say this episode, something about how the Rangers talk to Bulk and Skull, there's something kind of mean about it, like in a little bit of an unsettling way. Now, I'm not sure if it's supposed to be, and I'm kind of want to watch more before I make this assessment, but it's like, are they supposed to be really aligned with Babu and Squat, and so they're just kind of fools? Is it the idea that they're supposed to bring out the worst in the Rangers, show the Rangers go bad? Like, I'm trying to figure out the function of Bulk and Skull, because if their function is to be bullies, but the Rangers aren't ever feeling, threatened by them, don't feel bullied by them, they're just kind of there as like soft antagonists. That there's something in the middle of the two sentiments that doesn't quite work for me. Something about how it feels like when they antagonize the Rangers antagonize back, and it's a little bit acidic, and it's very 90s, is the other part of it. I, it's just something that bothers me about that relationship and that writing. And I know they're around for a long time, so that will get softened. But like specifically in this episode, in the very short time frame Bulk and Skull are in it, specifically the relationship that they have to Bulk uh, when they're responding feels very like they don't just want them to go away. There's something kind of antagonistic and sour about it I don't like that feels very not Rangery to me. Um, and I'm kind of waiting to see if it gets addressed later in the show once they start getting redeemed. Um, I don't know. Something about it kind of bugged me. But unlike Food Fight, where it felt like a hyper focus of the episode, it was so short in this episode that I got over it. Uh, the scenes in the command center go on a little long, but not quite as long as the food fight scenes did. Uh, I, Alpha's a really hard character to love as a 40-year-old. As a 6-year-old, he's kind of hilarious. As a 40-year-old, he's a little grating. I think maybe Alpha's supposed to always be just a little grating, the Alpha 5 units are, but they're still better than the Alpha 6. Uh, I like that he tries to connect with the Rangers, though. I really do. I like that Zordon is really in touch and he commends Billy and then later commends Trini for things. He does know more about Bones than he should. I think this is just a function of being a kids' TV show, but like no one tells him about Bones and that his name Bones. And I'm kind of bothered by like he doesn't even see it, and he's already telling them it's named Bones. I have feelings about it. I'm not sure what those feelings are. I just have feelings about it. Um, it's a pretty good episode. They get to kind of the cactus garden area to fight off the putties. It's unclear why the putties and Bones aren't together. Because if the idea is to trap them in the time warp that's in the cone of the space shuttle, you'd think you'd want them all in the same location. It's unclear why the space shuttle time warp doesn't just take place at well, like why this whole episode doesn't take place at the amusement park. Why there's different locations. I don't mind them. I think this location, the desert cactus garden location, is good for what we need it for Trini's part of the episode. It's a very bifurcated episode. Um, and then we get the bone stuff, which is more about them having some teamwork and doing things spur of the moment. The next episode after this is Cleanup Club, but Teamwork is the name of the episode that cleanup. I guess Cleanup Club and Teamwork are the same episode. I'm not sure. I'm excited to watch it. Uh, but that's coming up next. But here you see like them doing teamwork kind of effortlessly in defeating Bones. Billy realizes they need to get rid of the head. Um, Trini is able to do some like really cool power move in order to dunk the head down into the lava. Which, if you own your own little pocket universe, why would you create like a destructive lava thing? There's a really interesting thing here too, where this is the second episode I've noticed they've done really well. This idea of the ticking clock of some very present danger. In the order of the series, this would be the first one, but there's this ticking clock with a bomb that theoretically, if it explodes, would trap them in this little pocket dimension. I guess because they kill Bones before the bomb goes off, that it doesn't, when it explodes, it doesn't trap them there. Um, it's also interesting that they kind of other Jason a little bit in another way here because I don't know if they just needed more time or what, but they bring in a third alien villain here. They bring in this like almost faceless Centurion Ranger for Jason to battle it. Jason's the only one that battled him. Jason's the only one that gets his sword out, and I guess it's because he was taken out of the time locked location, Bones' little private island area, by the Centurion, so he's not affected by the explosion, but he's the only one that gets to use his Zord. Um, yeah, I think it's actually really cool to see the Zords doing things on their own because they come with powers. And we get to see a little bit more of the inner console. We get to see how he has those little gear shift things that he does, which I think are really neat. I kind of like this portion of it more before we start getting like they have to use the crystals, which obviously look CGI'd. Um, yeah, I think this is a good episode. I actually think it's a better episode than Food Fights. I don't know again if it's gonna last, how long it'll last in like the top five, top 10. But except for the fact that it feels a little overpacked, this is a pretty competent episode. Again, I'm struggling a little bit with how the Rangers talk to Bulk and Skull. It feels like that's something that maybe needs to be addressed by Zordon a little bit. But maybe that's supposed to be the part of growing up, because they're not overly antagonistic. It lands in that weird gray area where it feels like they're getting as good as they give. Um, but something about it bothered me about the way I think about Rangers. And maybe this is because this is the first set of Rangers. So as we go down the road a little bit, they'll be sanitized from this. Maybe this is more of like taking the idea of Sentai and imprinting it on American teens. This is kind of what it looks like. But these Rangers feel a little more biting and a little more stand up for themselves than some other Ranger teams do. Uh, it's interesting to think about. I really enjoyed this episode. I really enjoyed High Five. I remember it as a Trini focused episode, and I think it works that way. Um, the battle here was great too. The battle against Bones really does feel like it has stakes. You don't know exactly what they are. They're not exactly spelled out for you, but you get the sense based upon what Rita has said and based upon knowing it's a time thing, uh, that bad things could happen if Bones succeeds. I like that they think they've killed Bones and they haven't killed Bones. They've come up with a secondary plan. Uh, I like the introduction here of the risk communicators too. I think having Billy do it and knowing later he's going to build the rad bug, knowing about Eye Guy, kind of knowing Billy's trajectory, getting to see it even here in the second episode is great. Um, Zach and Kim are great in this episode, but they're not actually very present in it. It's kind of weird because I know how important Kimberly and Zach both are to the series, but it feels like right now, especially for Kim, we're not getting as much because like she's just kind of she's there and she has some lines, but she's sort of standing off to the side a little bit. Like she's useful when she needs to be there, but like it sort of feels like, when you have a really great drag queen on Drag Race, in some of the older seasons where like there's an episode where they take a back seat and you sort of notice. Like I'm noticing it now and I'm like, "Ugh, there's five of them, but it feels like three got a focus for this episode, sort of thing. I do like that she was part of the human chain. At some point, I guess they talked about this human chain thing, the three of them. Um, I don't know if we're ever going to see it again. I'm going to keep like an eyeball out for this human chain thing again. I do like this idea that Jason doesn't automatically go for his morpher. And this is something that I've actually seen players kind of self-censor in the game. It's not a rule I have to give them. It's like a rule that some of them have internalized as fans of the Power Rangers. So I like that. I know they're doing it economically too, but I also think it's an interesting idea of like, okay, I'm a hero now, but I have to like figure out when it's appropriate to like don my outfit and become the next little version of myself. Yeah, I liked High Five. I think this is a pretty serviceable episode. I would not be surprised if it doesn't stay in the top of the episodes for quite a while. Um, I do think because a monster is grown, I do find it weird that Bones doesn't come back, like even just a headless version to go against what Jason does, because I think even a headless version would have still worked. So I'm not quite sure why they needed a second monster of the week in this episode. It feels very much like as part of time. But it's really cool to see what the T-Rex Zord can do on its own. I think this is part of the reason why I had such a negative reaction originally when I was a kid to Tommy coming in, because in episodes like this in this early part of the series, I really did. They really already are depending upon Jason as a leader. He's already a voice of courage, a voice of reason. He's already displaying leadership capabilities, and it feels weird to like transfer that over to Tommy so soon. Because the Green with Evil series starts, in like 16, 15 episodes from now. And so here, even in what I think is appropriately episode two, instead of episode three or episode six, I really do think this should be episode two. Um, I think it's fantastic. I I'm not sure if it's better than Day of the Dumpster. It's still a really hard pilot to beat. But I have to tell you, of the episodes I've seen thus far, High Five really impresses me for what it does, what it showcases, and kind of does a lot in why did the Power Rangers work for so long with such an almost formulaic sort of existence. Yeah. So this is High Five, and that's my episode for this week. Uh, did you enjoy High Five? Where would you rank it on the list? We have three now, so I think High Five is going to go under Day of the Dumpster, but above Food Fight. So that was the third episode. The next episode, which Google just calls episode 4, but I call Cleanup Club, and I think might be called Teamwork on the YouTube page, and I think it's Cleanup Club in Netflix actually. But the next episode, I think we all sort of agree is the Cleanup Club episode, which I'm very excited about because I actually really love this like nuclear toxic Captain Planet waste dump thing going on in Age of Growth somewhere. But really good second episode. Again, Ernie comes in clutch. Announcing that's the Power Rangers show. I guess this happens when it happens again in Food Fight, just to make sure you got the message. One thing Ernie says that's interesting is he says they call themselves Power Rangers, which means at some point in more phenomenal time between episode 1 and episode 2, someone overheard them saying it. And for the tabletop game, I often disagree slightly with some players about auditory systems within and without the helmet. So it's kind of this interesting thing of how did the Power Ranger name actually come to be? Because I always thought it was like someone gave them the name and they didn't disagree. Um, and of course, Zordon gives them the name, but in the command center in episode 1. So I'm not sure. It's a very nitpicky thing. It's not that important. Uh, yeah, but high five. And I wish you a high five for the day. And I can't wait to see you next time. And I hope the power protects you.